Hello everybody and welcome back. This is SaberRex coming to you live with yet another Beasts of the Mesozoic Tyrannosaur series review, and today we are going to be looking at the last of the small Tyrannosaurs for Wave 3 and for the Beasts of the Mesozoic Tyrannosaur series in general. This is Eotyrannus lengi, created by a Creative Beast Studio, obviously, and David Silva. So here we are. There is our incredible little toy. And before we take a look at this toy, let's take a look at the packaging for him, shall we? So here is our box for Eotyrannus. And if we lift him up, you can see the incredible artwork done for it on the front by artist Shannon Beaumont. Like with all the Tyrannosaurs for the Beasts of the Mesozoic, multiple artists contributed to this toy line, including Shannon Beaumont, Ralph Lamotin, R.J. Palmer, and so many more. Yeah, and Gabriel Uguido. I love his work too. But anyway, this is incredible artwork, and inside this you can see the miniature cardboard diorama you can take out and place behind the figure if you so choose to. And on the back you get, of course, your obligatory product shot, information about the animal, and screenshots of all the Beasts of the Mesozoic Wave 3 Tyrannosaurs. So there you have that. Sorry, swallowed wrong. Now, along with our figure, we also have inside this box. Sorry, that took me off guard a little bit. We also have this collector's card, as you can see here, done again by Shannon Beaumont, with, of course, the information and the obligatory dinosaur product shot on the back, and the ever-important, drumroll please, instructions. But yeah, if you're going to put this tiny dinosaur together, you need to read these instructions, because this little dinosaur is quite delicate. You gotta be very careful, so I highly recommend either you use hot water or a hairdryer to loosen up his joints and heat up the tail so you can pop it onto his body. Now, the other thing that is, of course, important is that when you change the feet for this dinosaur, when you swap them for the different toes that also come with the dinosaur toy, yeah, you heat it up with a hairdryer so that the plastic is softer. Otherwise, you might risk breaking the figure. And honestly, with a figure that has joints this small, I don't think you want to do that. But yeah. Now, moving on to the figure itself, we have our magnificent, absolutely magnificent Eotyrannus, and his coloration is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, wow. Wow. I love this one in regards to its color scheme, the best out of them all. I mean, look at that. It looks so natural. And I can't imagine this animal looking any other way. Now, color-wise, the Eotyrannus's coloration is actually based off a bird of prey known as a red kite. And honestly, it really, it suits it well. As I said, just phenomenal. But anyway, before we move on to looking at the articulation for this dinosaur, I'd like to show you the little interchangeable feet for this figure so that you can understand exactly what I'm talking about when I say you can pose him in many different ways. You can actually take off the standing feet that he is currently equipped with, and you can and you can actually look at all, well, you can actually use these tiny little sets of closed running toes and these mid-stride toes to actually put him in more dynamic poses, and it really suits him well. Personally, I don't like to do that with these figures because they're so small. The risk of breaking them might be higher, but you can if you want. And yeah, to each their own, I guess. He also comes with this little extra cradle, larger cradle for the clear translucent posing rod, and the base is not much. There's not really much to talk about, other than the fact that it's pretty much the same as with the other small tyrannosaurs. However, I did find out something interesting about my particular copy of this base, so I am forewarning you just in case you have this problem too. For my Beasts of the Mesozoic Eotyrannus, the peg hole into which this little stand and cradle fit was a little too small for the ball joint at the end of the cradle. So I actually had to kind of buff it down a little bit with a handheld miniature engraver which had a blunt sanding head on it. So once I had buffed it down enough, it was still a tight fit, but I managed to get the cradle in, and I am not taking it out because I don't want to risk it. I don't want to risk it getting stuck or being unable to get it in again. But that's just me. I don't think anyone else is going to have this problem, and if they do, now you know how to fix it. But yeah, in regards to the toy itself, this Eotyrannus has 19 points of articulation. He has movable jaws, like so, open and close. In this case, I like to keep his jaws open, because he just looks more menacing that way. He can move his head down, like so, as he can also do with his neck. He can move his head up about this far. He can move his head right and left about that far. Same for his torso, although with Eotyrannus the torso is a little more limited. That just may be my figure though. He can also move his torso up and down like so, and again mine has a little bit more limited motion in that regard, but that again may just be my figure. So this is why you heat up all the joints to ensure that there's proper range of motion. His arms can move back about that far because of the feathers on the edge of the arm. They can go about 90. They can bend to about 90 degrees in a forward-facing position. The wrist moves. The wrists also have swivel, but again, tight joints, so I'm not going to really mess around with them, but they do have wrist swivel. Yeah, and the arms can go a full 360 all the way around, though I don't recommend it too much because you don't want to accidentally pop it off the joints. And the elbows and shoulders, well, the shoulders can move out about that far. The elbows can go out and swivel too, which is a great thing. So he's got quite a bit of range of motion in his arms. In addition to that, the legs can move about this far or back safely. You can do a full 360 with this, but because of clearance issues, I don't recommend it. His legs can move about this far forward without getting caught on the torso. The knees can bend pretty far back, but yeah, to about 90 degrees, but I'm not going to move them very much because his joints are still a little stiff. The ankles, though, can also move. Yeah, the ankles can move about that far forward, that far back. The feet can bend, well, the feet can move forward, back, up and down, and swivel side to side. So you got some really good, good movement in there. And yeah, he can bend pretty far back. Now, he also has, of course, motion in his tail at the base. The tail is also on a wire, so you can also pose it any way you like. Personally, I like this more dynamic pose where the tail is kind of moving on its own, kind of in that weak S shape. And yeah, just really great articulation on this figure, and absolutely phenomenal. I really, really enjoy this figure so much. He is so cool. Now, in regards to facts about Eotyrannus, this is arguably one of my favorite early tyrannosaurs, in part because this was actually one of the first early tyrannosaurs I ever learned about. I actually learned about this guy from a newspaper article when I was in first grade, so that was... yeah, I was like 6 at the time. And yeah, so right about the late 1990s was when I learned about this guy. And Eotyrannus is fascinating because it's a fairly small tyrannosaur. The adults are estimated to have been about 15 feet long, so this is pretty good size for one in regards to 1/18 scale. So this would be comparable to a subadult, if not the average mature adult, perhaps. But then again, we don't entirely know how big this animal was. The only fossil was a subadult that wasn't quite fully grown. But, yeah. Eotyrannus lived about 130 million years ago in the Wessex Formation of England. So this is a British tyrannosaur. And it is very cool in that regard because Britain pretty much is where tyrannosaurs apparently evolved. They seem to have evolved there around 160 million years ago, or somewhere around that time during the Jurassic. But the Wessex Formation dates back to the early Cretaceous, so Eotyrannus is much later, like about 30 million years later. And yeah, this particular tyrannosaur lived with a lot of different animals we know from quite good fossils and some fragmentary remains. These animals include Polacanthus, the ankylosaur, Hypsilophodon, Iguanodon was one of the animals it lived alongside, along with Mantellosaurus, and Neovenador, which was the apex predator of the region. It also lived alongside 3 different spinosaurs, that is to say, Ceratoseucops, Rhiparovenador, and the incredibly famous Baryonyx. Eotyrannus also lived alongside a lot of different sauropods, including some that aren't entirely described yet from fossil remains. But yeah, just an incredibly diverse ecosystem this animal lived in, and this probably would have been about a mid-sized hunter in that area, because at 15 feet long, and Neovenador being about almost 30 feet, this animal would have been about half the length and maybe about a fraction of the weight. So this animal was probably chasing smaller prey and maybe scavenging off of things that Baryonyx and Neovenator were going after. But yeah, definitely one of the more unusual and interesting dinosaurs. But Eotyrannus is also interesting because recently, within the last 2 years, it was redescribed in a new paper that suggested that the Megaraptora, a very unusual group of enigmatic theropods with huge hand claws and razor-sharp teeth, were actually the sister group to tyrannosaurs in general. And the reanalysis of Eotyrannus, that is to say this tyrannosaur, suggests that Megaraptorans and tyrannosaurs are essentially family. Hopefully this will be vindicated by more fossil finds, but I tend to agree very strongly with this theory. It makes the most sense, given some of the features we have from the specimens of Megaraptorans that we have thus far. But, yeah, hopefully more fossils of more complete Megaraptorans will help clear up the picture. But, yeah, Eotyrannus basically served as the key to helping perhaps unlock this mystery. So, it's another reason why I love this dinosaur so much. Now, this figure is about, I would say, 8 inches long, which is standard for the smaller tyrannosaurs. And like with the other Wave 3 figures that I've reviewed thus far, I am not going to compare it yet to the others in size, because there's really no need to yet until I showcase every single one of them, as with the rest of the Wave 3 figures, once the final Wave 3 Tyrannosaurs, the big ones, arrive. And that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I am going to enjoy sharing that with you guys. But, yeah, 8 inches long, maybe about 3 inches tall, and arguably, this is one of the more beautiful of the small tyrannosaurs. So if you really want a nice little tyrannosaur that's not going to break the bank in regards to spending cash, this is probably one of the best ones to get, because he was about he's about $40, and yeah, if you want a nice little tyrannosaur that can make a nice conversation piece, or just make a nice little decoration for your desk without taking up too much space, this might be the one for you. But I do not regret getting any of these tyrannosaurs. I am getting them all, and I love sharing them with you by way of these videos, so yeah, this is fun for me. But anyway, I hope you decide to get at least one of these figures based on one of my videos, because if I can influence someone in that way to get something that'll make them happy, and just be a nice little decoration or figure for them to enjoy posing and using for art references or anything like that, it's all worthwhile to me. So this is SaberRex signing off, saying you're never too old to play with toys. Be a toy nerd, be proud of it, and please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the bell icon if you'd like to see more content like this. Thank you, and have a good evening. Bye-bye.